to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Radicats. You can find me at Radicat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerd Nito on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. And the sound effects you've heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, 1agent_7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the borough of King. Sorry, we're running a little bit late. Part of it is because I was in our neighboring borough of Queens for something, but now I am back in Brooklyn, where, you know what? No! Feeling that one tonight.
Indeed. And you can find this podcast on the Coastal of the Podcast Network. That's ESPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast provider place of choice, whether it be Google, whether it be Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps people find our show.
There probably is a Google thing out there, but I have no idea what it is right now, and I haven't set up the YouTube thing either, so that's a whole nother situation. But in all of that, you can definitely check us out when we record, normally on Thursday nights, or anytime we record, actually, on the YouTube channel of The Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/The Kliq Nation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Again, please click like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you know when we are on live and direct recording and broadcasting.
Indeed. And we're going to start off the show with a little ketchup. Well, not a little ketchup, but some mustard. Anyway, yeah, no, terrible. Rings of Power, season 2, episode 4 dropped on Wednesday. Actually, I was under the impression that it drops on Thursday, but that was for the premiere apparently. So, when I went on there today to watch the show or the current episode, I was like, new episode is Wednesday. I'm like, oh, that's good to know. They don't always tell us these things, you know?
Right. Because I did not leave myself enough time to watch it today, but Rodicat did, and he'll give us his take on it with the mildest of spoilers.
Yes, and yeah, because it's despite the fact that it came out yesterday and not today, we're still not going to spoil a thing. But I will say that the name of the episode is called Eldest, if I remember correctly, and I believe I do. And that doesn't necessarily give you a hint to everything that is going on in this particular episode, but I guess it gives you a hint to a particular thing. So like that, without trying to spoil anything for Agent 70 or anyone else, we do get some forward motions on some subplots. That
it is, by the way. You are absolutely correct. It is titled Eldest.
Sweet. Particularly the no, hopefully this is doesn't constitute much of a spoiler for Agent 70, but the subplots are, if I remember, and weird enough because some of it's running together because I watched episodes 3 and 4 together. So, I believe it was the Harfoots, that whole thing,
right?
And it kind of bounces back and forth between that and some folks we haven't talked to since, well, this whole season particularly, I guess you could say. So so we got some Numenor stuff, that part. and I can't remember what. But yeah, there was a couple of things that kind of got that they went to they went to deal with, and oh yes, oh yeah, and there was something that continued from the end of the episode 3, which was an invitation that ended up going out, and some, you know, uh, ongoing machinery machinations
Right.
um, from that. That was touched upon, but that's this show. I don't think we've talked about it since since last season, but the show is beautiful. The show is a very pretty show. That Amazon budget, man. Um,
Absolutely.
you know Amazon budget is working for them, because, like, the location sets and whatnot, and everything is just pops. So it is a very pretty, the effects even. It is a very pretty show, and looks at the money shows in that, and it is still continues to be engaging, given that every episode so far is like an hour plus,
Mhm.
give or take, but it's roughly around an hour. I haven't yet to see. Another thing about, there hasn't been one that has been less than an hour. So those episodes are definitely going to those 8 episodes are definitely going to be meaty, which is good. Like, you got the time and space to do this kind of thing, to where it's like, yeah, you can get a whole lot of stuff out in a good chunk of time, as opposed to what Marvel and Disney kind of has been doing, you know, with the same constraints on them. But then again, some of that is probably by choice.
Mhm.
So, for good or for ill, regardless, Amazon's using that time and that budget to good effect. Um, all I am going to say, which is going to be, I have to, I feel like I say this. Why does it got to be the black people?
No, no.
That's all I'm gonna say. That is all I'm going to say. Because in this
Did we lose
particular
another
episode, huh?
Did we lose another one? Oh no!
So yeah,
Bring one back.
so yeah,
Pour out a little.
just
And that's
just a little bit, but it may or may not be a great loss, but I'm just saying, why I got to be the black people to go first. That's all I'm saying.
right. Like a horror movie, but except I thought we reversed that.
But fantasy, yeah, but in fantasy settings. So,
Yeah.
but there was definitely a couple of good movie reminiscent. There's at least one or two movie reminiscent action scenes
Cool.
in this one also. So, or maybe I might be, one of them might have been from 3, but I think regardless, between the 2 episodes, we got some good stuff in there. And like I said, just to keep from spoiling anything, because anything I want to get into would be very much spoiler, so I'm not going to do that. And it was a good episode. That this train keeps trucking along, and now that we're halfway through this season, looking forward to next week. For the continuation, especially now that I'm caught up. And yeah,
Very nice.
yeah, it is indeed. Like I said, very pretty show. And with that, as I forget to put a chapter marker down, we are going to get into the books of the week, starting off with, which I don't know why I did that, because I didn't have to. Scarlett, number 4 of 5.
Right. So Scarlett number 4 of 5, published by Image/Skybound, is written by Kelly Thompson, with art by Marco Ferrari, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Russ Wooton. We continue on with Scarlett's mission, and she's reunited with her target slash teammate slash roommate slash friend. Like, there's a lot of stuff being described here, in terms of a relationship, but ultimately they are working for the Arashikage clan. And if you're not familiar with the current setup of the GI Joe the various GI Joe series, it is definitely a little different from what you remember from the Larry Hama continuity from the original Real American Hero. So, or at least it's different from how it began.
Hmm.
So, once you realize that and you're willing to see how this all plays out, you get to the end of the issue and something weird. I don't know if this is a callback to something else. I don't know if this is something that is supposed to remind us of Serpentor. I'm kind of at a loss, so I will hand it off to Radicat with that.
So I did do a quick search on that thing,
Mm-hmm.
and from my initial search, I don't recall anything or even remember anything from the show. It could have been something later on, but I don't see anything that kind of bore that out. So I don't know. This could be something new, or this could be, like maybe this was something else, but they did it in this form.
Sure.
Because let's face it, GI Joe the cartoon would have done some real silly stuff, and has,
Right.
wherein something like this would come about. So I would not be surprised that. So I'm sorry, my dwarven just came out. That something reminiscent from the show is a part of that thing coming out. But basically, hey, this whole big mission that Scarlett's been on, that she's been kind of undercover with and reunited with Jinx, all about, and them going on about that, ends up to this. I was honestly thinking it was something a little bit more Cybertronian.
Mm, right.
Because they were
Given
making a because they were making a really big deal about it, and they were talking about like the energy and all this kind of good whatnot, and maybe it still could be now that I think about it, but I don't. You know what? That's where I didn't check. I checked GI Joe. I didn't check Transformers, but I'm just going to go on a limb and say that's probably not the case anyway. Because the only
right.
sword I can think of was from a one-off robotic ninja, and I'm pretty sure that had nothing. It had no special properties outside of being wielded by a robotic ninja in the Transformers series. So, slight spoilers there, but nevertheless, hey, well, not even slight, but it is what it is. Because if I remember correctly, they were building this issue as, hey, there's something going to be in here that's going to just blow up, blow things out of the water for things to come.
Right.
And so far, the only thing I could see that would even be close to that. It was like, well, and this is not even a big surprise, but Cobra gets mentioned.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so
Right.
so Cobra kind of came into play.
Right. Right.
But
I mean, listen, my gut says like the second things got really wacky and kind of supernatural, like in the sense that it affected the ongoing storylines with Serpentor, right?
yeah.
So I have a feeling maybe this leads to that down the road, maybe not right away, but that's just my guess,
Yeah,
speculation part.
maybe. And even with Real American Hero at this point, I think they've taken that and doubled down on it from what I've seen.
Right.
So that part in itself is kind of funny. Um, but yeah, none of that is seems to be in play here yet. I feel like with this Energon universe, they got enough on their plate to where they don't necessarily need to go that route, despite the fact that Cobra Law is floating around.
La 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 la.
Exactly. So it's that's kind of where we are in at this point in time. What is the last issue of Scarlet going to roll out with? Well, the last page may or may not have given a hint to that, if that happens to be, but it still that wouldn't be a big of a surprise, you know, with any of these books.
Right.
Um, Actually, I was about to say no. It would be the only book that it hasn't that this person hasn't shown up in, but that's not true because they didn't show up in Duke. Uh, like they've been really careful about layering who comes in where with the books that are out. And GI Joe, the book is not coming out for another 2 months, 3 months. So no, 2 months. Excuse me. So yeah, that I'm sure this is going to lay some groundwork, and Destro is still out there, so that's probably going to lay some things going into the book proper. And the only thing I can think of coming out of this is maybe they're setting up special missions coming out of this, if they even have time to do that uh, in this issue. But we'll see, because like I said, we know what's what and what's not in this universe with the G.I. Joe stuff. So, anywho, next up, we are going to go into, what did we say? Exceptional X-Men #1.
Exceptional X-Men #1 is written by Eve L. Ewing with art by Carmen Carnero, colors by Nolan Woodard, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So this is the latest new direction for the refugee slash evacuee slash, the remnants of the mutant nation of Krakoa. And they, this book follows a certain Catherine Pride, who goes by other versions of that first name in this issue, and Catherine being her given name.
Yeah, more classic versions of her,
right.
of her given
Catherine
name.
with a K, Catherine with a K, and we get a lot of narration, some basically what would be thought balloons, kind of giving us an idea of what her state of mind is, what her current thinking is, of what her situation is. And it's very much in line with the way a lot of people think who are of her relative age, which is, how did my life get like this? But it is an X-Men book. And so things happen mutant wise around her that she, kind of gets, it's very much, I'm just looking for the right.
Just when I thought I was out.
From The Godfather 3, right?
Right.
It's very much that. That is very much her experience with this. And that's even stressed more so towards the end of the book when another character reaches out to her. And with that, I'll hand it off to Radicat.
So yeah, so there's part of the book that was kind of, it's going back to the whole, we get her narrating, but there is one part of this issue that made it seem like she was basically talking to the camera, like almost breaking the fourth wall type situation. I'm like, wait, is that what she's doing, or she's just, or is it just made to look like that? And that part in itself was kind of amusing, but also like, we don't need another character to do that, and especially this character who has never done that before.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, it could have been just made to look that way, or it could have been the case. We don't know. But yeah, I enjoyed this. There's usually aspects of Eve Ewing books that I enjoy. We got a new character out of this, to which, if you've seen some of the promotional materials, you already know this is not a big spoiler. This one, could have potentially find a potential friend slash protege. Well, Kate could have found a potential protege in this one, in a way, even though this character is nothing like she was when Kate was this character's age. But this is more of a modern take of a certain type of kid who is into certain things, and in this day and age, which is kind of amusing. But yeah, we'll see what comes out of that part. And the whole thing with Emma at the end was like, just felt like an epilogue. It's like, oh yeah, this whole issue is just going about. Oh, and by the way, ping.
Right.
So, but yeah, this is a book. This is kind of one of the books that was like, well, is it going to be of any interest? And so far, yes. Listen, we don't know where this is going to lead and how long is it going to go, but so far it started out quite nicely. So we'll see what happens with that. And obviously, there may or may not be a team of it. There, the cover is suggesting that is the case, and we hadn't gotten there yet. But this book is also doing what a couple of the other books are doing, coming into the Fall of Ashes, which is like, hey, we're just singling, a character here and there, leading into the formation of whatever happens, which, not a bad thing, if it works out. And on that note, we're going to the last book that we have in common, which is I didn't do the parent covers, but that's okay. We'll get to those. Ultimates number 4.
Ultimates number 4 is written by Dennis Camp, with art by Phil Noto and letters by VC's Travis Lanham. So, even though the title of this book is Ultimates, one of the characters that is that this book follows, that this particular issue follows, is traditionally a Fantastic Four character. And that character, we get to see that character's negative feelings. We also get to see that character's version of events as they occurred in this Ultimate Universe, as opposed to the other Ultimate Universe, as opposed to the 616. And with that, I'll hand it off to Radicat.
Yes, indeed. And going back to the whole negative emotions thing, if you ever needed a new name for depression, the negative zone has been coined here for you. Although some would argue that's probably an old term. Could also, is an old term. But in this particular universe and in this telling, it is now. So I like that. That was actually a pretty good pretty good thing. It's like, oh yeah,
it was a nice little twist.
Yeah, somehow that makes a lot of sense. But outside of that, Tony kind of may or may not have mentioned the MCU thing when he's talking to Doom. But we also get the fact that everything that Agent 70 just said about the where this character normally would lie on, let's just say, may or may not be coming back again, as Doom is working on a project that is very familiar to folks in the FL history realm. So I do love that this is a particular click of the week for me, because I do love the way this had the whole thing played out. Like, going into this thing, we kind of knew some things about the character. We didn't necessarily get the whole backstory that we got here. That whole thing that Disney's Camp was teasing out when RDJ was revealed as Doom for the MCU doesn't necessarily bear out all that, but hey, it was still a good marketing ploy. But it in this particular case, it did make for some good reading here. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm sure this is not the end of that, but what we got, so far is pretty compelling. Where it ends up going, you can kind of see it, but at the same time, whether it's going to get a chance to go that way because of what they might be setting up for an event, we'll see. So, and with that, unless Agent 70 has anything else, we can get on to rapid fire.
Now we are going into rapid fire reviews, folks.
All right.
I ain't got time to bleed.
First up is Daredevil number 13. It's written by Saladin Ahmed with art by Chris Campagna, inks by Craig Young, colors by Yen Nitro, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. So, coming off of the cliffhanger ending of the previous issue, we go right back there. And there are a couple of twists in this story here where it comes to when it comes to seeing how Matt is struggling with how he's come back, what he's been doing with his life since coming back from the dead, and with the life and the blessings, the literal blessings that he was given. So, coming off of the events of last issue and seeing how that rolls right into this issue, it's super dramatic stuff. The one thing I told Roddy Cat is that the art here seemingly did not fit the mood required. You know, there's some real heavy stuff going on in this book, and I don't think the art lived up to or was able to portray that well. That's just my 2 cents. But still a great book.
That cover is hilarious.
Yeah. Next up is Immortal Thor number 15. It's written by Al Ewing with art by Jan Bazaldua, colors by Matt Hollingsworth, and letters by VC's Joe Sabino. So this is almost always a clear candidate for Click of the Week for me because it's Al Ewing, and this story continues to kick butt and ties in lots of Norse mythology and Greek mythology and other, stories of old into, this grand tale of the immortal Thor that he's telling. So I'm obviously going to appreciate when he brings in, like I said, some of these elements of mythology that we've seen here and there in comic book Thor, but we don't see it that often. But when I see it, I'm very happy to see it. And one of those things is a certain belt, but how he comes across how this belt comes about is part of the story here. And I wasn't so keen on the resolution of that story, but it's not over. You could definitely tell it's not over. We circle back to the Enchantress, and lastly, we also see the return of a character we thought was gone, but come on, it's comics. Anyway, Click of the Week candidate for me. Next up is Miles Morales Spider-Man number 24. It's written by Cody Ziegler with art by Federico Vicentini, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So yeah, I circled back to this. I've skipped a bunch of this book. I skipped a lot of the Blood Hunt stuff and the precursor Blood Hunt stuff. I'm more interested now to see what comes after and what comes of that. And, we see Miles trying to deal with it scientifically. We also see Miles maybe dealing with this stuff in a more metaphysical way. And there is a guest appearance at the end of the issue that's going to lead into the next issue that, we'll see if Miles is able to get rid of this particular affliction anytime soon. Next is Moon Knight Annual number 1. It's written by Dan Waters with art by Marco Renna, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So this is the latest in a string of annuals that tie into the current Infinity Gem / Infinity Stone wielder saga, whatever you want to call it. Right now, Colleen Wing is the wielder / owner / holder of the Mind Stone and all of the powers that come with it. And that's a big thing because some other characters are looking to get it from her. She's not going to give it up without a fight. And that's generally where this issue goes. Moon Knight obviously makes an appearance because this is his annual. But I was reading this simply to see what happens to Colleen Wing. So we'll see where the next annual goes. And that's it for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I need to catch up on this stuff. Well, need is probably a strong word, but I'd like to. First off, Birds of Prey number 13, written by Kelly Thompson, art by Gavin Guidry, colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So this ends the story arc that this whole pocket dimension travel story arc that the birds have been going through. And the last stop on this trip is Spirit World, which, if you are up on DC Comics, and remember me talking about who guest starred or who popped in last week in relation to that, you can see where that character kind of comes into play a little bit in this particular issue. And apparently one of the birds in relation to that had already taken a trip here to Spirit World, which I did not know because I did not get a chance to read that miniseries yet with this new character. But nevertheless, constant scenes here, and future maps are still here, and everything kind of comes back together as things kind of get wrapped up, but also leaves a kind of a loose end for them to play with down the road. before going into the next arc of this book. Not entirely sure what it is, but it is on with Canary just getting a message about something that is I guess they'll deal with next issue. Next up is excuse me, My Adventures with Superman, number 4 of 6. Apparently, I had 5, so that is my fault. Written by Josie Campbell, art by Pablo M. Kohler. While I'm talking. Colors by Nick Filardi and letters by Lucas Gattoni. So it's Christmas at not it's Christmas time in Harlem in Hollis, but it's Christmas at Cadmus as well. I guess they had a little respite within what's been happening the last couple of issues, in that Ma and Pa Kent are trying to teach the Mazo bot about the spirit of Christmas and, of course, family. But as tends to happen, and they're being at Cadmus, excuse me, events happen as they're trying to hide out from Amanda Waller and also Checkmate, who also kind of come into play at the end of this to kind of muck things up. But and again, as I've said before, this whole story takes place in between seasons 1 and 2 of My Adventures with Superman, the show. So, if anything's going to come out of there that has already been reflected in the show, maybe not. But it's it is calling towards things and people that have already shown up, which you've already seen by now. So it's not going to be any kind of surprise, but still pretty good. Next up, Star Trek number 500. Yes, 500th issue of Star Trek. And of course, that's not just because of this run. That is, within subsequent runs leading up to now from IDW. So there are a lot of names on this book, and I did not write them down because I was being slightly lazy. But I will do this for you folks really quickly and really right now, because because of its anniversary issue, it is a anthology. So therefore, you got some different stories, some of which are kind of amusing. So the first story is a triple love story, amusingly enough, that was written by Jordan Bloom and Patton Oswalt. You might know one or two of those people. Art by Leonard Kirk, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Jody Troutman. Then there was the start of one of two Discovery stories, which the first one was written by Jody Hauser and art by Vernon Smith, and colors by Charlie Kirchhoff. All the letters are being done by Jody Troutman, with the exception of the very last story. Let's see. The next story is written by Magdalene Viziago, with art by Megan Hong, colors by Charlie Kirchhoff, and like I said, letters. The next one is script by Stephanie Williams, art by Trent Tinch. I thought it was Trench for a second. I was like, when did he get into art? So that was kind of funny. JP Jordan does the colors. And then the next story is a Q story, which is written by Morgan Hampton, who did, if I'm not mistaken, did the Sons of Star Trek miniseries, which makes sense because it is centered around the Q, who was a part of that story. Again, script by Morgan Hampton, art by Megan Levins, colors by Charlie Kirkhoff, and letters, the next one is probably one of my favorite ones that I read so far, that I've read of this in skimming through it. It is a DS9 baseball story.
Oh yeah,
that that involves one corgi from named Latdem, who was front and center for the Dogs of War miniseries from a few months back. So that whole thing was kind of cool. Script by Mike Chen, art by Angel Hernandez, colors by Nick Filardi, and letters by Jody Troutman. Like I said, this last story uh, is one that leads into the current story of Star Trek, or I guess puts more into this current story of Star Trek, this book, and leads into an event that is coming. It is the script by the current writers of Star Trek, which is Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly and Christopher Cantwell, because they both are writing both the Star Trek book and the Defiant book, respectively. Art by David Tinto, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So yeah, this is like I said, it's basically lore and data doing some stuff, and it is leading into, like I said, what is essentially going to be the next event, which is called Lore War, with what is going on right now in Star Trek, and not Defiant, because the Defiant's kind of off doing something else, but probably will lead into it by the time the event comes in. But yeah, some good stuff. Like I said, the first story was kind of amusing because of the way the Tribble love story plays out with whom as the unrequited love interest. If you know anything about Tribbles and the times that they've shown up in Star Trek, you might get an idea of what's going on here. But overall, it's a good solid 500th issue. Oh yeah, one of them. Actually, I just thought about it because one of them is a Lower Decks story where in Rutherford and Tendi make basically make their own androids, and comedy ensues from that because it's Lower Decks. So some good stuff in this thing if you are interested. Next up, I forgot you did. Agent 70 did say he did not read this, but Spectacular Spider-Man #7.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and he also gave me to go ahead, which I'm still not gonna really spoil it too much, but but yeah, Spectacular Spider-Man, written by Greg Weisman, pencils by Humberto Ramos, inks by Victor Olazaba, colors by Edgar Delgado, and letters by VC's Joe Caramagna. So we get the end of this whole Arcadium situation. The last issue ended up with the introduction of a new adversary that came out of that whole situation. But pretty much everything gets wrapped up here to a point. Like revelations have been made. Yeah, all of that. Like I said, don't want to spoil it too much. There's even a nice little new universe / Hickman era Avengers callback to a couple of characters that show up here, and I was like, I was not expecting that, but that was kind of amusing to see. But as I say in my notes, all's well that ends, and that's pretty much how it goes going into the next issue. Let's see. Next up is Dawn Runner number 5 of 5, because this is the last issue of this book. Script by Ram V, art by Evan Cagle. Not Cable, that's a different character. Colors by Francesco Sagala, color flats by Gloria Martinelli, and letters by Aditya Bidikar. So yeah, I had to read the last issue. In fact, I think the last 2 issues to kind of remind myself of what was going on with this book. But things had gotten kind of dire because there was the big bad Tetra, who were the big invading aliens. That was popping up every now and then, that they had to fight gladiatorial style. But this one very big one popped up last issue and caused all kind of havoc. and it was pretty much all hands on deck on this one. But at the same time, things were looking kind of dire. And we got a little bit of a metamorphosis coming out of this that ends up not only saving the day, but saving, as they say in the book, saving who all they can in this particular situation. It could possibly lead to something else coming out of this, but the way this was presented, this could very well be the end of the story, and that's it. Like I said, there was a kind of a tidbit at the end that was like something they could come back to if they wanted to, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. It's almost like Met Cadet styles. It's like, yeah, you see this thing coming out. Even though Met Cadets, you can see things kind of, continuing. But in this particular case, whether it will or not, don't know. But it definitely seems to be an end of a sort. So, but it was a good book. I enjoyed it. So I don't know if it was because of that's the intended end of the book, or whether it wasn't selling it and it wasn't wrapping up. I don't know. So not entirely sure about that part. The last book for me is Plastic Man No More, Book 1 of 4, written by Christopher Cantwell, art by Alex Lenz and Jacob Edgar, colors by Marcelo Mayalo, and letters by Becca Carey. So, if you're of a certain vintage, you may or may not remember a certain show. And fortunately and unfortunately, I do remember a little cartoon in the 80s called Plastic Man. There are aspects of that show that I think are represented here, which is kind of amusing, but also probably represented in aspects of Plastic Man's story so far. But we get a little bit of we start off with a little bit of history before E.L. O'Brien became Plastic Man, with a side character who looks suspiciously like a character from said Plastic Man cartoon show. But then we get into a little recap of how he got his powers and all that kind of stuff, including his family life, or it includes his family after that, which again includes a couple of characters that may or may not be stands in for folks off of that show, which is kind of amusing. But getting into the crux of the story, we see Plastic Man on an assignment with the Justice League, which ends up being kind of dire for him, but pretty much the Justice League kind of taking it as a joke, because Plastic Man all jokes a lot, which may lead to the title of this book being an actual case, or not, unless Plastic Man can reverse what's going on with him. But in order for him to do that, would need a Hulk level, a Hulk level solution in order for this to reverse itself. And of course, it's Plastic Man, so he's going to try to do it. So we'll see how that works out in these next 4 issues. It was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting. I don't know. Anytime someone comes up with a Plastic Man book, it's like you kind of wonder how it is. The last time was Gail Simone, and that book was kind of interesting, but also pretty jokey as the character tends to be. This one, not as much, and it's also a Black Label book, which means there's a little bit of cursing in it, but not a whole lot. So, but it is Black Label, so it is a little bit more, I guess, grim in a way that to where the regular books were, and not necessarily sure if this is actually in canon or not because of that, but it could very well be. Who's to say? And that, folks, in the books that I have. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week. How about?
Yeah, I got a couple.
I named them basically. I really did like Exceptional X-Men #1, and Immortal Thor #15. So those are my 2. How about yourself?
Ultimates and Exceptional. Like there are other books that I did absolutely like. You know, the Scarlett Spectacular, the Star Trek thing was pretty good. Uh, Lords of excuse me, Birds of Prey usually pretty good. So you know, but those probably stood out. That Plastic Man book also probably is a potential actually. So it's Ultimate Exceptional and that Plastic Man No More book that are potentials for me. Um, and I actually think I might have mine in the form of because I did like the way it played out. Ultimates #4 is my
Nice.
flick of the week.
Yeah, no, I definitely liked Ultimates #4. It was just short for me.
Mhm.
Kind of the way Daredevil was, because I love the story, just the art wasn't there for me this month.
Right.
Um, I'm going to throw a curveball here. I loved Immortal Thor, but I think this week I'm going to go with Exceptional X-Men #1,
Oh, nice.
just because I really liked what they were doing with Catherine. We'll call her Catherine because she goes by a couple of different aliases or nicknames or names here. So,
To be fair, I never really stopped calling her by that other name, but also it's like, in talking about books where she's been keeping it, at least keeping it to that or keeping
right.
it to what they had it in. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna be nice, but in my heart, it's always Kitty. So
Exactly. So
but yeah,
I'm definitely in that on that team. So
yeah, Exceptional X-Men definitely a pretty good pick, if I do say so. So uh you kind of in the pack of stuff that's already come out, you kind of want to especially given everything that's come out so far, uh that is not X-Men and Uncanny, put it this
mhm,
way, you know.
right.
So, and with that, folks, we're going to go into the news section, but first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we get into cinematic news as we do about this time. Superman and Lois final season moves to a new night as the CW swaps Monday and Thursday lineups.
They're still doing this?
Apparently. It says the fourth and final season of the CW Superman and Lois will debut sooner than expected. It's going to be, let's see. The CW made a change on the network's fall schedule with Superman and Lois and new Wild West unscripted series The Wranglers moving from Thursday to Monday, swapping nights with the upcoming game shows Scrabble and Trivial Pursuit. Wow. Which had originally been slated for Mondays. The move is being believed to be in response to ABC creating an 8 to 10 game show block on Mondays with Celebrity Wheel of Fortune and Press Your Luck, which would have gone head to head with the CW's game shows, with Tuesday and Friday spoken for with Sports Shit and WWE. You see, I did that because WWE is not a sport, but anyway. F you, wrestling fans. Anyway, I'm just kidding.
Oh. Shots fired.
But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. And looks like I'm seeing if there's going to be a date for. Yeah, here we go. Superman and Lois is going to launch with a 2-hour premiere on October 7th. There we go. Next up.
Surprise new look at George Miller's canceled Justice League movie features an underrated DC hero. George Miller was set to direct 2008's Justice League Mortal. Okay, so filmmaker Ryan Unicombe has released a surprise look at George Miller's unmade Justice League movie, featuring the late great Hugh Keys Byrne as John Jones, a Martian Manhunter for George Miller's Justice League. Okay.
I remember hearing about this years ago. Okay, that's the thing that almost happened. And the Master Manhunter thing was already a thing here, but I don't know who this person is who was playing him. So apparently, this article knows. So good on them, I guess. Next up, though, unless you got something else.
Nope.
Fantastic Four is the Thing gets its first look in leaked set photos with a comic book accurate retro aesthetic. So I saw this picture on the Twitters, and it just reminded me of when Ben had the Thing suit when he lost his powers basically,
Mhm.
being in a suit, and also the second Thing who's was that Sharon Ventura?
Yes.
Yeah, who also did the same thing before she went through her transformation. So, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, yes, here we go. If you're watching the video version, you can see a low res picture set shot, which weirdly enough looks like it was probably taken from a drone. But also the Thing mask looking directly at the camera, so you kind of wonder. But nevertheless, you can see the makeup folks or the effects folks putting the finishes touches on the face, I guess. But yeah, it looks enough comic accurate to be Thing. So cool. Next up,
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
yeah.
I liked it.
Oh,
For
it was cool.
now, for now, like obviously this is like an early production photo, so we'll
Right, and you
see
got to
how.
see it in action to
Right,
to get the gist of it.
right. Let's see. Voice actor Jennifer Hale on the video game strike and AI fears. Quote, "You're using technology to take away our ability to feed our kids." Okay. So this is an opinion piece. So the voice actor whose work in animation and video games includes Avatar: The Last Airbender, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Baldur's Gate, X-Men '97, and many countless more, is one of the most recognizable voices in video games. Okay. So currently, the gaming industry is at a halt after SAG-AFTRA called a strike against the major video game publishers on July 25th. The strike was called after more than a year of failed negotiations. So, waiting for this article to load so I can scroll. And so AI is a major sticking point in the union's talks, just as it was in the writers and actors strikes, concurrent strikes from last year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Say if you don't know Jennifer Hale at this point, I don't know what to tell you because she has voiced a lot of stuff. Including probably some notable folks in the Justice League cartoon, to keep it a little bit closer, even though some of those things that are, mentioned notable for themselves. But yeah, she's been doing this a minute. Despite it kind of sounds like they're taking all of our jobs. In this case, they kind of are. With the whole the AI thing, not AR, but so it's a serious business for those folks and for us. Next up, though, we were talking about this earlier before the show. After 20 minutes of screen time across 5 movies, Lord of the Rings actor Hugo Weaving admits that he doesn't think of Elrond, quote, with the same sort of stature as fans does. Now, I'm not sure what the fans think of Elrond to a point. It's not like he comes up that often. It's like, oh man, yeah, Elrond, he's a bad character. that kind of thing. You just know that, hey, it's Hugo Weaving, and he's he's doing his Hugo Weaving thing. So, and apparently he hasn't seen Rings of Power either. So he hasn't seen the quote unquote younger version of his character.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, here's a quote here. It says, I haven't seen it and apologize to Robert, Robert Aramayo, who plays young Elrond. I spent too long in Middle Earth, and I don't particularly want to go back there. I love New Zealand. I recently went back to New Zealand, end quote, according to Hugo says. So that man says, you know what? I got my check. I did my thing. I don't need to go back to it. Unlike Ian McKellen, who's like, yeah, I'll suit back up if I'm willing. I mean, if I'm able to. So, but anyway, next up.
Well, we're in the anime corner now, right?
We are.
Actually, more appropriate.
That first one was a sad reminder of we didn't get a chance to read Gotcha Man.
Gotcha Man this
week.
Yeah.
So
hopefully by next week.
Yes.
Dragon Ball Daima or Daima. Do we know how this is pronounced?
I think it's Daima.
Okay, Dragon Ball Daima has finally set a release date for its premiere this fall. Dragon Ball Daima is a brand new anime set in the Dragon Ball universe as part of the 40th anniversary of the late Akira Toriyama's original Dragon Ball manga. This new anime will feature a new form of Goku taking on all sorts of brand new adventures never seen in the franchise before. So let's see here. As reported by Montan Web, Fuji Television has announced that Dragon Ball Daima will begin its broadcast in Japan on Friday, October 11th at 11:40 Japanese Standard Time as part of a launch for a new late-night block. So the first episode of the series will feature an extra 10 minutes, but it has yet to be announced what the international release plans and potential streaming platforms it will be available with. So, we'll see, soon, because Friday, October 11th is pretty soon. Maybe we'll hear something at New York Comic Con. We'll see.
Maybe. First of all, this is not a new version of Goku, as this article says, because one, we've seen young Goku twice. Especially if you count GT, which I know some people do not. But this pretty much falls in line with how GT started, because GT started with just Goku, ended up getting shrunken back to youth size, or
right? They just turned small. They're
right.
just turned small. They're not reduced in age.
Right.
This is the way that Toriyama described it. Due to a conspiracy, it's always a conspiracy. Goku and his friends are turned small. And in order to fix things, they'll head off to a new world. It's a grand adventure with intense action in an unknown and mysterious world. Since Goku has to make up for his petite size, he uses his power pole to fight, something not seen in a long time.
Power pole extend. It's probably the Dragon Balls, just like in GT.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if it's something else that made them small again. But it could be something else. We don't know. But yeah, no, the fact that we got small Goku again, like that's not new. That's not new at all. But anyway, that's just me nitpicking this article. Next up, you know what? You should absolutely take this one.
I have a feeling Roddy Cat was going to offer. Haikyuu fandom soars into the anime's 10th anniversary exhibition. You can see photos in this Crunchyroll News article from the latest Haikyuu anime anniversary exhibition in Japan. So the Haikyuu anime might be in its endgame. The enthusiasm has not let up for this mammoth franchise. Now in its 10th year, the series is bigger than ever, with the latest film the 35th highest grossing movie in Japan, and even celebrations all over the Olympics. To commemorate a decade of encore battles, the Haikyuu, now I got to read this article about celebrations all over the Olympics. The Haikyuu anime 10th anniversary exhibition was held across Japan, with the first opening in Tokyo's TFT Hall. with the burning energy from all the fans from across the capital descending on the sold-out event. So you can take a look at some of these photos. They're pretty cool. I definitely am itching to watch this movie again.
Of course you are.
Definitely.
Right, there's team. Two people. Yeah. Some else. Yeah, we did. We absolutely talked about a little bit of it because but it was in relation to the fact that hey, they were playing haiku music during the volleyball and some other things that was going on.
Were they playing? Well, they played it in 2020. I didn't know that they played the haiku music at the Paris games.
Yeah, I believe they did. The article I remember we talked about, I think, did say something of that sort. So,
Okay.
I think that was like a couple of weeks ago, so I had to go back and check. But anywho's, Bleach's character designer says pop culture's greatest villain isn't from anime, it's from Disney. So this is something that came out from Anime NYC, where Masashi Kudo gave the honor to the best villain of all time to Disney's Maleficent. Kudo made this pronouncement on the main stage of Anime NYC, where he was promoting Netflix's upcoming Terminator Zero anime, which is actually out at this point, and I need to check it out. At one point in the panel, moderator Cleo Thomas, some of y'all might know that name, asked both Kudo and showrunner Mattson Tomlin, who's currently writing the Batman Part 2, about their animated inspirations. Kudo says Sleeping Beauty and that Maleficent is the best character ever introduced. So, there you go. It wasn't a shot at Disney, as some might have thought from the title. But, yeah. Next up.
All right, we're going into the manga corner. Creator Masashi Kishimoto is eyeing a new manga. So since 1997, Kishimoto has been a mainstay in the manga industry. The artist has overseen a few projects during their career, but of course, everyone knows Kishimoto best for his work on Naruto. So recently, Kishimoto clued in fans to his latest work as he appeared at a fan event in France with Boruto artist Mikio Ikimoto. It was there the pair answered tons of questions, and Kishimoto shared in a question about what's important to him right now is what's important to him now is spending time with his family and maybe a new work, and that's it. Love it.
I mean, hey, priorities, man. Good on them. Now we get into some comic book news.
One moment. Comic book news.
A long lost, in quotes, 70s superhero comic is finally being published. The legendary Links, according to this article, is the stuff of legends, a 70s feminist superhero classic whose pages were long believed to be lost in a labyrinthine conspiracy of murder, drugs, and intellectual property theft. Or at least that's how the fictional comic book is framed in pages of Secret Identity, Alex Segura's pulpy crime thriller about the 70s comic book industry. The book's twisty noir plot centers around a queer Latino woman working as a secretary at a comic book company who has to hide her identity in order to get recognized as an actual writer with her book, The Legendary Links. But a few behind-the-scenes betrayals cause more complications for poor Carmen Valdez, which I don't know why I know this. Feels like, isn't that the name of the Spy Kids character? Anyway, leaving, huh?
I said, you got me.
Yeah, I don't know. Leaving her comic pages and identity unknown for years in the story's world anyway. So, yeah, I saw that Secret Identity book, and I wasn't entirely sure what the deal was, but that gives me a little bit more to go on. But this is from Oh, so the Legendary Links is going to come out in a quote unquote new remastered collection in November, November 12th to be specific, from Mad Cave Studios, which I believe is also the same company that is publishing Secret Identity. So I guess a book within a book coming out. Person. So that's cool. That's actually interesting. I hadn't read that Secret Identity book, but it seems cool. Sounds cool. Next up.
Alrighty, next up, DC omnibuzes Miller and Hester's Swamp Thing run. Okay. So DC will publish the final Vertigo run of Swamp Thing by writer Mark Miller and artist Phil Hester in a hardcover omnibus with a new introduction by Hester and afterward by Miller, as well as a new cover by Hester. Excuse me. The 898-page omnibus includes Swamp Thing Volume 2, issues number 140 through 171. And it will be released on January 14th, 2025, with an MSRP of $125. This is from 1994 through, however many issues. 30. So let's say not quite 3 years.
Right. Did you? I don't know.
Not that era of something. Not
Right.
the era.
Gotcha. Next up, though. Oh, I can't take that. I take that back. I might have, because I think that might have been what my cousin was reading. I don't. Actually, maybe not. But I know. No, it wasn't, because no, he was reading. He was reading like the 80s, the 70s, 80s stuff. So I take that back. DC officially replaces Green Lantern's iconic oath with something way, way darker. This is a Screen Rant article, so be aware of that. And which is why I say that, because it's probably not is what they say it is. But this is spoilers from the Shadow Lanterns that appeared in Green Lantern 14, which I need to catch up with. So basically, there's a new group of lanterns called the Shadow Lanterns, who are the personal police force for the United Planet's leader, Tharos. I guess because the actual core is something else at this point, now that I think about it. And this new core reflects, this new oath reflects a shift from being respected to being feared, with enemies now told to fear them, according to this article. So, if you're watching the video version, you can see the oath right there on the page, and I'm not going to read it. So, next up.
So that's wild.
What's that?
That they changed the oath?
Well, I think it might. I don't know if they changed the oath. It's the oath for these particular set of lanterns, quote unquote. I think, or if I read that properly.
Yeah, I mean, it is a Screen Rant article.
Exactly, which is why I said that off the
Exactly.
But I think the regular the lanterns you know and love still probably have that oath, the regular oath.
Next up, Superman and Batman Elseworlds comics return to print after DC revives the Elseworlds imprint. So there's going to be 8 volumes of the new edition DC Elseworlds collections. Okay. So we're going to get, a bunch of, I guess, reprints of this stuff. Wow.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And of course, it's mostly the Batman stuff.
People love this stuff. Exactly. I know lots of people love this stuff. So, if you missed it or if you're looking for it in hard copy, have fun. I don't know if this stuff is on the DC Universe app.
I would imagine it would be.
Right. I would hope it would be, but I guess, there's always going to be someone that wants it to be on to put on their shelf.
Actually, I'm lying.
This is what I was looking for.
No, go ahead.
Hold that thought. The collections average 300 pages in retail for $34.99 each. Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna recant what I said. Not recant, but I was just go back on what I said, because it's not just Batman stuff. It's like some Justice League Elseworld stuff, Superman Elseworld world stuff. But there's a couple of Yeah, basically it's like Batman, Superman, Justice League stuff. In addition to that DC versus Vampire stuff that it did, and Gotham by Gaslight stuff. So, yeah, I still need to read Superman Red Sun because I guess that also that all that stuff kind of counts in that as well. But yeah, I mean, like 87 said, if you don't have some of the stuff and you want to check it out, yeah, it'll be out there for you. But also, hopefully, it would. I can't imagine that stuff not being on the app because that'd be crazy if it wasn't. So, but anyway, Marvel editor teases giant size X-Men plans. So, Giant Size X-Men #1 celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2025. This article mentions the fact that Marvel revived the giant sized moniker back in 2005 and again in 2020 with a series of one-shots written by Jonathan Hickman, featuring characters such as Storm, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Phantom X, and Jean Grey, and Emma Frost. Most recently, the title returned for Giant Size X-Men back in May as a part of their the other 50th anniversaries giant sizes that they did. That's why we've been seeing a whole lot of them in the last few months with Giant Size Superstars #1. I don't remember that particular one coming out, but yeah. But yeah, I remember. I know. We've definitely seen a few giant size books from characters coming out. In his latest Substack newsletter, Marvel Comics VP Executive Editor Tom Brevoort teased more giant size X-Men in 2025 to mark 50 years since 1975's Giant Size #1. Quote, there will be some giant size X-Men goodness coming your way in 2025 as a part of this anniversary celebration. But not exactly in the way that you're imagining. Stay tuned. So, there you go. Next up.
The moment, folks. Why Jen Bartel stopped drawing She-Hulk covers for Marvel Comics. Okay. So, oh, wow. So
yeah, I saw this on Twitter.
Did not realize this. Okay. Okay, hold on. So this was like a Twitter thing, and I guess she responded.
Yes.
And basically, it's about digital copies of her work being sold and her not getting any money for it.
Well, so here, I'll do it. So basically, she was first.
Yeah, because I'm like scanning through this, and I'm like, yeah, this is a lot.
So basically, she was asked about about Marvel Snap, which is the card game that's out, and people do.
Oh, Snap!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I saw that, and I wasn't really sure how that played in, but Roddy Cat being the gamer of the two of us, go ahead, please.
Well, it went further than that, but yeah, that's where this started. So basically, somebody, I think somebody added her about the fact that there's a new variant of one of the cards in Marvel Snap, and she she mentioned like that would be great if I was getting that's great, but wish I was getting paid for her, basically, and that's what started that off. So apparently she and or maybe anybody else who does cards, because I know I see people touting those cards when it's like here's my variant for this card, this is the name, but it doesn't sound like they're getting paid, or she wasn't getting paid for them. Now
Right.
go from someone asking her why she stopped doing covers for Sensational She-Hulk after issue 7.
I see.
And she was like basically like yeah, because they haven't paid her. Or it sounds like they had not been paying her for those in a timely manner or at all. So hence the reason why that is. And then of course I guess there's been some other people asking about what's up with her or why she hasn't been putting anything out because of that, and it sounds like it's probably related. So Yeah, I saw the initial tweet and the tweet about somebody was asking her about the why she stopped doing She-Hulk covers,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's weird. Um, and then this article kind of goes on and talking about the contract that is signed and how she's been criticized for it and stuff like that. You had to read through the rest of the article for that, but that's pretty much the crux of it, of where this started.
Got it.
Yep. Next up, unleashes Ghost Rider's true form, what he looks like without a human host. Again, another Screen Rant article. So, uh, Zaranthos, if you're watching the video version, you can see him right there. Sans human host. And I guess this comes out of Ghost Rider Final Vengeance #6. So, sure. Next up.
One moment. Iron Man. Spencer Ackerman teases an angrier Tony Stark, improvised armor, and new Ironmonger. So, in an exclusive, I guess this is leading into the new run on Iron Man, and this is the Stark Roxxon War, which kicks off in Spencer Ackerman and Julius Ota's Iron Man. So, this is going to launch a little bit more than a month and a half from now, October 23rd.
I wonder if that QR code is real.
You got me. But yeah, no, this is a pretty extensive preview of the first issue, and you get some insight from Ackerman about where this book is going to go, and you also get a preview image of some improvised stuff that may have to happen, and a new Ironmonger.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, shout out to that. Shout out to our man Tim Dog 98 who did this article. Not this is not the reason why I pulled this article, but I just so happened to see that was the case. Also, I guess while we're at it, there's also variant covers for Iron Man #1, which also showcases the quote unquote improvised Iron Man that we're going to get in this next story. So interesting. But next up, Marvel and Capcom are teaming up for the most in demand, according to this article, and hardest to find comic crossover of 2024. So, hey, y'all know about those Marvel versus Capcom games? Well, guess what? Now there's going to be a comic. So, which, if I'm not mistaken, might be. I think we talked about it. We might have talked about this already. The fact that the physical version of the Fighting Collection is going to get a comic book, and I believe that this is that. So it's going to be a one-shot comic book. Yeah, will be a part of a special package to promote the game's release. It's a 32-page comic where Marvel and Capcom's universes collide. Let's see, Todd Knox doing the cover. Let's see. According to this article, this is the third ever Marvel vs. Capcom comic book. Hence, I guess the hard to find stuff that they're talking about. Following an extremely rare mini comic released in 2011 as a part of Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and a full comic book in 2017's. I do remember that one, and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So yeah. And also a reminder that next week is the digital releases for digital release for Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, which would be all of those Marvel vs. Capcom games, and the physical release is coming November 22nd.
That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. Knowing my dumb behind, I might get both if I can find that one with the comic. But I suspect that comic will probably be out there shortly after release as well. So yeah. I'm going to actually take this next one because it is related in the fact that Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics is also coming to Xbox after all, which was the big question mark in a lot of people's minds. I guess Microsoft finally gave up the money to have that happen, or whatever was the case behind it. I'm thinking it's probably the money, but who's to say? But yeah, so it's finally going to be coming to Xbox, and unfortunately, it's not going to come until 2025 sometime, because this was a recent announcement. And yeah, the PlayStation version is the PlayStation. I think the Switch version are the ones that are coming out on November 22nd. So there is Xbox people can stop bitching, as you will eventually get it at some point next year. So, next up.
Okay. Yeah, Marvel Legends Inhumans Crystal and Lockjaw 2-pack pre-orders dropped earlier today. So I got mine, and you know, there was a little bit of sticker shock, but then you realize that Lockjaw is a big piece of plastic. So yeah, he's a good boy, but he is a big boy. So anytime you get one of these big pieces of plastic, like the Rhino or the Juggernaut or that Juggernaut Colossus 2-pack from several years ago, you're going to be paying a little bit more. So yeah, you know, once I got over the sticker shock, I was like, yeah, that's mine. So I got mine. So it's out there now. Hopefully you are not shut out of the pre-orders.
Oh, and this was probably why you were talking about that Punisher and Jigsaw 2-pack.
Yeah, there's a couple of pre-orders that have dropped in the last, within the last year, that were curiously hard to get on. Obviously, that Warbird at Target is the biggest pain in my butt. Like it comes back and it's hard to find. It's just ridiculous. It's honestly ridiculous. But yeah, that one's the worst. But then I've run into a couple problems with other ones. So I'm gonna have to just hunt them down on the secondary market. Hopefully, it's not too expensive. It reminds me of Endgame Captain America. Right, I ended up getting that at a smaller markup, so I didn't hate myself for doing that because it was it wasn't a bad price.
Right. All right. Cool. Next up, Hasbro brings back hard to find Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series figures. So let's see, what are we getting here? We are getting Clone Wars era Obi-Wan. We're getting Professor X in the chair. We're getting Asajj Ventress. So, and these are let's see. Oh, yeah, 7 Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, and Star Wars The Vintage Collection figures, which were initially released between 2019 and 2022. So that's it. The aforementioned ones I mentioned, also a vintage Green Goblin, Clone Commander Obi-Wan, like I said, vintage collections, Luke Skywalker with X-Wing, and a few other jobbies within that, but not that many. But so yeah, if you didn't get those the first time, well, guess what? Here's your chance to get them again. Next up.
Yeah, I know a lot of people probably will want to track down that Professor X in the 90s hover chair.
Or that Asajj Ventress that I know.
Right. So, okay. How Star Wars walked away from the world's first self-retracting lightsaber toy. Hey. So this is a Verge article. It would have been a Star Wars product, but Hasbro whiffed. Okay. So this would have been a $60 toy. Okay.
I guess when some of these were made though, like these were actually out. But
so with the help of a different manufacturer, you can finally buy this retracting lightsaber as the Goliath power saber. So it's $60. It's not an official Star Wars toy. It doesn't have sounds or authentic Jedi or Sith hilts. The blade isn't as long as the movie sabers, and it does not have the build quality or sophistication of pricier props. But it has a mechanism that finally has a lightsaber toy that can actually retract its own blade. Okay.
Which, hey, worth the price of admission for some
folks.
Right. Yeah, because I remember I said, I was like, wait, you sure that happened? But then again, I do remember seeing there was probably been some other knockoff ones back in the day. But yeah, But hey, you know what? It's still cool. Regardless, it's not the one that you is what you want, but it's not the ones that you want with the sounds and the effects and
Mm.
whatnot. Hey, but it's worth something. Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, was funded in 10 minutes. So the campaign went live on crowdfunding website GameFound, and was fully funded. It started at 6 a.m. and was fully funded by 6:10. So there are a lot of people who like Cyberpunk 2077, and specifically that world. So you know what? Not surprising that this happened, I guess. Cyberpunk 2077, the board game, is a cooperative, story-driven tactical action game with 1 to 4 players, which explores a quote "one if" scenario, which alters a crucial event from the video game. Actually, okay, according to the synopsis. So, yeah, that's that. It features 13 missions, unique mechanics, and characters from CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk universe, including V, Judy, Panam, and Jackie. Rest in peace, Jackie. If you played the game, you know what I'm talking about. So that's not even a spoiler. And if it is, oops, I guess. But yeah, that's cool. I would like to see that if it happens to be out somewhere. Next up,
Via Japanese website PR Times, there are images and information about some new Takara Tomy Transformers 40th anniversary official goods, which will be offered exclusively at the upcoming Transformers Expo 2024 in Tokyo from September 13th to September 29th. So there's a list of them here. Very moderately priced if you happen to be in Tokyo.
indeed. Which, let's face it, some of that stuff probably going to be on eBay.
Yeah.
So that a particular figure that is on here, but we're going to move on and say that Studio Series TF1, that's Transformers 1 Bumblebee, has been unveiled, and Transformers Day 2024 has been announced. So yeah, I don't care anything about the Bumblebee figure or that Transformers 1 movie, but there you go. For folks who may be, if you're watching the video version, fans can pre-order the Bumblebee figure on September 17th on Hasbro Pulse and participating retailers. It's $24.99 and will be available between the spring 2025. Excuse me. Transformers 1 is going to hit theaters September 20th, 2024. So a little early. Outside of that, I thought it did say something else about another thing in relation to things, and no, it does not. Next up.
The Mighty Morphin Green Power Ranger, also known as Tommy Oliver, played by Jason David Frank, rest in peace, debuted in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in 1993, 31 years ago, almost. He was initially introduced as a villain under Rita Repulsa's spell, but Tommy would eventually break free and join the Power Rangers as the Green Rangers. So he got to be super popular. So now Super 7 is bringing back this character with a nostalgic twist with some retro 90s packaging in a 7-inch tall figure. So, they're doing a whole wave, and now Super 7 is also bringing back the Green Ranger.
You can see the mock-up for the picture right there if you're watching the video version. Also, I believe recently, Power Rangers Day was recently, and also I believe the passing of the original Yellow Ranger was also celebrated recently. So yeah, there's some things going on in the last few days. Next up, though, I'm going to take these next two together because they are related. Mark Doyle, publisher of IDW, was let go along with 3 others, actually 4 others, given the second article. Let's see, Mark Doyle. Who else? Tara McCrillis. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. That is the co-publisher, and that's not it. But doesn't say actually. Weird. But this is the main one. Yeah. Okay. Mark Doyle and 3 other staff members in marketing, production, and shipping have been let go from IDW Publishing. There we go. And also, along with that, Holly Atchison is out as a marketing manager at IDW. the recent IDW layoffs. So apparently she had not been there as long as Mark Doyle has, but yeah, you hate to see it when folks lose their job, and there's been a lot of things going on in IDW lately that kind of make you wonder about some things. So hopefully those people will land on their feet. I'm sure they will. Next up and lastly for us tonight.
As mentioned earlier by Roddy Cat, Star Trek declares the Lore War, which is a new crossover event this coming March. So this is in March 2025. So this was teased in Star Trek number 500. Lore has used the power of a Bajoran orb to remake reality. Oh, you mean like an ultimate universe? Replacing the old Star Trek universe with one more to his liking. Oh, like a maker?
You mean like a house of lore?
Oh. Yeah. So, yeah, that's coming, folks. That's coming. Always with the Bajorans, man. What are they good for? Anyway.
Hey. You almost had me because I almost did the song, but that wouldn't have been right and proper. So no. Hey, Bajorans all right. There's some cool Bajorans out there.
You know who I think of, right?
Who?
The cranky old white lady with the blonde hair, the long straight hair. The elder Bajoran lady.
Oh, Kai Wynn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody. No. Fuck Kai Wynn.
Every time she stepped on the screen, I was like, ugh.
She was, but that's what made her so good because she was so good. It was like you just know you were gonna hate whatever the hell she's doing there for.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kai Wynn was a mess. But you kind of love seeing her on the screen because she just played that part so damn well.
Wasn't she Nurse Ratchet? Wasn't that the same actress?
I believe that is the case. Yes.
One for the Cuckoo's Nest. So yeah, obviously that was very much ingrained in my brain.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Louise Fletcher.
Yep.
Who I believe, she has passed.
Yes, I believe so.
So
Star Trek Lore War #1 releases on March 26th. Okay.
Yeah. Also, for no good reason, shout out to Kyle Paka because I always liked her. Oh, also, I meant to bring this up actually. Speaking of deaths, and we'll close this out with these last couple of things that I just pulled up. But James Darren died, who played Vic who played the hologram Vic on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He was like the Bobby. Well, I'm betting that Bobby Darren is his brother, but he played the owner of the hologram, the holographic club in the later seasons of Deep Space Nine, and he passed fairly recently. To which some of the folks, you would know and think of, gave their condolences and whatnot. But also, I should probably put that in the show notes. But Star Trek the Motion Picture, and this will save me from not having to do this next week anyway. Star Trek the Motion Picture gets a 45th anniversary 4K Blu-ray Steelbook edition. I've been watching that a lot lately. Don't ask me why. Well, it's not because it's been on Pluto TV. Not a sponsor. But yeah, so that's the thing that is coming out. I don't see a price here, but if you didn't already have it, it is definitely going to be the remastered version, more likely, with the new effects and whatnot. So there is that. And I guess I will save this next one for next week in relation to such things. With that, folks, that ends the news section for us. Can we get one last ad read?
Our last ad read of the night. It's late, folks. We're tired. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us and click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
All right, folks, that's it for tonight. Like I said, we started a little bit late, so we had to get through it. But this is unsurprisingly not that far from when we normally end, sadly. But we will be back next week with more Rings of Power business.
Yes, we will both have a chance to watch and catch and be caught up.
Yes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, hang on, let me check this. No, okay, that's 2 weeks.
No, Agatha's out the week after.
Right, that's what I was checking for. So
I figured.
Yeah. Because I knew it was coming. I was like, wait, is it next week or week after next? So yeah, Agatha All Along is going to be 2 weeks from now. So we will have that then. So yeah, it's Rings of Power next week and whatever books come out next week. And I don't know, maybe we might talk about Gotcha Man since we didn't get a chance to talk about it this week. Who knows, man? The world is our oyster cracker. And with that, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Wakanda forever!